We'll see what is that.
Okay.
I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I said so. I have this hairy mole right on my shoulder, you know. And my bestest buddy Allah, he works for me though. I call him God to make you think I'm pure as white snow. In the damp cave of Hira, I met this bad man. He squeezed me until I threw up the Quran. When I ran to Khadija in anguish and fears, she explained, "This is Jibreel," and wiped off my tears. I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I am him, and Allah caters to my needs in every whim. His reward is that I let people think he is Lord. Then he lets me torment the people when I get bored. Now the world must revert and become just like me, and never ask questions and never be free. You'll become dumb, blind Muslims and do as you're told, or your heads will be rolling your family's soul. Oh, Aisha, ooh la la, what a pretty dress. May I wear it? Your dresses get those revelations rolling. No, don't touch my eye makeup. Mine is too young for makeup. I'm 54 after all. My religion, Islam, grew like fungi on bread, due to people's reluctance to part with their head. And because I got rid of the people who think Allah's slaves can be duped to do things that sure stink. I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I said it. I meet up with Jibreel when I'm in need of you. And my bestest buddy Allah delivers on time. These girls and boys and slaves and all these riches of mine. I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I told you. My brothel in the sky awaits if you say it's true. But if Allah will find out in the mosque you did fart, He'll dump you in the hellfire when you depart. He'll dump you in the hellfire when you depart. Oh, Aisha, I still feel the pain after the food I ate in Khaybar. Allah is cutting my aorta.
Allah is a false God, a false God, a false God. Allah is a false God, a false God. Allah is a false God, a false God, a false God. Allah is a false God, a false God. And Muhammad is not a prophet. Muhammad is not a prophet. If you want grace and mercy and love, Islam is not for you. But Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the King of Kings who died to save us all. If you just repent and believe He took your sins on the cross, then mercy and grace, forgiveness and love, eternity can be yours.
Hallelujah. Let Lord Jesus Christ shine forth. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us. Welcome to live stream with DCCI Ministries and RobertSpencer. How are you doing, Robert?
Thank God. Very good. How are you?
By God's grace, I am good. Thank you.
Those were beautiful and inspiring nasheeds. Thank you for playing. Now I want to go out and do jihad.
That's the purpose of it. We want people to do jihad, but we want people to do in a struggle one, not the real one.
Oh, well, that's not as fun.
Why not?
I'm thinking about it from the Islamic perspective. It's very important we try to understand that jihad is good for you even if you hate it. That's what Allah says, right? Even fighting is prescribed from you, though for you, though you dislike it. Anyway, pardon me.
I have watched videos where people are doing jihad because they don't have six packs or because their hijab is like red instead of black. Like pretty hard work.
Yeah, I saw that one with the poor woman with the red jacket and the ISIS people. That was terrible. And they're smashing alcohol in Aleppo right now, as a matter of fact. I just was putting up the video at Jihad Watch. They took over the airport. And of course, it might be that some non-Muslims want to drink something alcoholic, but of course, the Sharia applies to them as much as it does to Muslims. So the alcohol is smashed.
Actually, a very proper business in Muslim countries when it comes to drugs and alcohol. Very good.
All hidden away. Hidden away is okay, but out in the open at the airport, no good.
No good. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me, as well as everyone. Thank you very much for being in the chat in this live stream. We've been looking at, we kind of didn't do last 2 weeks, but we are trying to go through the Quran and then unpack the word of Allah with the author of the Quran, RobertSpencer. We kind of almost at the end of Surah 2. So we left last time in Surah 2, 237, where we kind of talked about a little bit of halal marriage. And then now we are going to pick up where we left. Meantime, those of you who are in the chat, if you want to ask questions, please put @ in front of DCCI Ministries, and then I'll kind of bring your questions to out of Quran, and then we take it from there. Are you okay for me to pick up from verse 238, or do you want to add anything what we mentioned before?
I think we've covered the cow fairly well so far. So onward. Ahl Imran is waiting for us.
There is big debate going on in England where apparently they are feeding the cows these creepy things so that like it can be like what is that called? Like more environmental friendly, and people are kind of using these milks.
I don't know anything about it.
Well, we will find out when people start getting ill. Surah 2 to 38. Be guardians of your prayers and of the midday prayer, and stand up with the devotion to Allah. And if you go out in fear, then standing or on horseback. And when you are again in safety, remember Allah as He has taught you what you did not know.
Just one small thing. Did you notice that in 238? Be guardians of your prayers and of the midday prayer. Now, why would they say that? Why do they have to say end of the midday prayer? Unless maybe the midday prayer was added later. And so they have to emphasize that it's just as good as the others. You see, these things are all supposed to have come from Allah in perfect form. And yet there are all kinds of signs that it actually developed piecemeal by committee. And this is one small indication of that.
You've got like some Islamic tradition talking about how this kind of verse corrected as the mid prayer needed to be in the verse.
Yes.
So with that, how many times do Muslims need to pray? Do we kind of know?
Well, we have 5 a day, but apparently there were 4 a day, and then midday prayer was added. Otherwise, it would not need to be emphasized in this manner. And so this contradicts the hadith, which has Allah giving Muhammad the 50 prayers a day, and then he argues them down to 5. Apparently, it got to 4, and then they went one back the other way.
Well, of course, all thanks goes to Moses, who convinced Muhammad to go up and talk to Allah about it.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you who are about to die and leave wives behind them, they should banquet to their wives a provision for the year without turning them out. But But if they go out, there is no sin for you in what they do of themselves within their rights. Allah is mighty, wise.
So
For
you can make provision for your wives if you're going to go to wage jihad and you're going to get killed, or you think you might get killed. So you make provision to take care of them for a year, or you can just throw them out.
So is it like, let's say my husband is gonna die, so expectation for him to kind of save up for me for a year?
Yeah. Or
and
not.
then or not?
Or not. See, you should bequeath to their wives. They should bequeath to their wives a provision for the year without turning them out. But if they go out, there's no sin for you in what they do of themselves within their rights. So, in other words, make sure they're taken care of for a year. But if you don't, no problem.
Absolutely.
Just throw them out.
Allah is all forgiving anyway. That
Yes.
It says that Allah is mighty and wise.
Mm-hmm.
For divorced woman, a provision in kindness, a duty for those who fear Allah. In this way, Allah explains His signs to you so that you may understand. Think about those of old, who went forth from their inhabitants in their thousands, fearing death, and Allah said to them, die. And then He brought them back to life. Indeed, Allah is Lord of kindness to mankind, but most of mankind does not give thanks. Fight for the sake of Allah, and beware that Allah is hearer, Noah. Who is it that will lend Allah a generous loan to Allah? Who is it that will lend Allah a generous loan to Allah, so that He may make it increase manifold? Allah makes poor and makes wealthy. To Him you will return. Think of the
Allah
leaders
wants you to give Him a loan. That's like fighting in jihad. That's you have to give something to Allah. And so it's, once again, we see the complete difference between Islam and Christianity, that in Christianity, God sacrifices His Son for human beings. And in Islam, Allah asks you to give Him things. He has everything and He created you, but He wants a loan. He wants you to give Him your life in the same way that Jesus gives His life for the people. In Christianity, Allah wants you to give your life for Him.
So God of Bible shows kindness by giving Himself. God of Islam shows kindness by taking for Himself. Don't we have also a story in Surah 5 where Jews are making fun of Allah? Oh, your God is poor, He needs money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. And of course, that they have every reason to say such a thing, because you have it right here. Allah is asking for a loan. Now, we can understand that. It's generally understood as meaning, it's metaphorical for you need to give to Allah, you need to serve Allah. But it's stated in these terms as if you have to give Him money. And of course, that is also part of Islam in zakat.
think of the leaders of the children of Israel after Moses, how they said to the prophet they had, set up for us a king and we will fight in Allah's way. He said, would you then refrain from fighting? If fighting were commanded for you, they said, why should we not fight in Allah's way when we have been driven from our dwellings with our children? Yet when fighting was commanded for them, they turned away, all except a few of them. Allah is aware of evildoers.
So look, the children of Israel, once again, are the villains of the piece, as is so often the case in the Quran and in the Hadith. And here, what they did wrong was not fight for Allah. And so the good people fight in the way of Allah, and that's jihad fi sabilillah, jihad in the way of Allah. And the evil people do not fight. So jihad is of this fundamental importance, that it decides whether you are righteous or not. And also note that the people who fight say, why should we not fight in Allah's way when we've been driven from our dwellings with our children? And so this recalls 2:191, which says, drive them out from where they drove you out. And it's a command to fight to recover any land that the Muslims once ruled, if it is no longer under the rule of the Muslims. And so that's why they fight to take Israel, why they will fight to take Spain, and so on. They have to drive out those who supposedly drove them out.
So if you are fighting on Allah's cause, then you are a good person. If you are running from fight or finding excuse to not fight, you are evildoers, and Allah is very much aware of you.
Yes, so you see Christians, a lot of ignorant Christians think we need to have dialogue with the Muslims and make peace and sit down and figure out ways we can live in peace together. And they don't realize that these values are not shared by the people they're talking to. The Muslims they're talking to most likely think that peace is a sign of weakness and unrighteousness, and righteousness is to fight.
Not very good at all.
No.
So in verse 246, I am getting the impression that author of the Quran is making the statement that God of Moses is the same God with God of Muhammad. Is that right assumption?
Yes, that's assumed all the way through the Quran, and it's stated explicitly in chapter 29, verse 46, where the prophet is told to tell the people of the book, our Allah and your Allah are one. It's a false claim that a lot of Christians and Jews take for granted as true. But actually, the more you look at the God of the Quran and the God of the Bible, the more different they appear. Then we can discuss that as we go.
Yeah, but when the Christians who don't know their Bible were all who don't know what kind of God they worship, as they would read it, they would be thinking, yeah, it's the same God.
Yes.
Very disturbing.
But what really we have going on in 246 is the appropriation of the Jewish and also the Christian tradition, because of course both Jews and Christians consider the stories of the children of Israel and Moses to be divinely inspired and part of the scripture. Excuse me. And so the passage here is talking about Moses and assuming he's a Muslim prophet. That is the complete appropriation, as I said, of the Jewish and Christian traditions and making them Islamic. And this is the same thing we see with the Temple Mount, where the Jewish temple was, and the two mosques that are there, and the Hagia Sophia, which was the greatest church in the Christian world, made into a mosque in Constantinople, and Hindu temples all over India being made into mosques or destroyed and mosques built over them. It's all about taking over the holy places of non-Muslims to show the victory of Islam. And in the same way, the sacred texts, the sacred stories of the non-Muslims are taken over and appropriated for Islam, at least of the people of the book.
Well, they don't have anything belong to them, so they still around, and then they kind of start pretending it was theirs.
Yes.
Their prophet said to them, indeed, Allah has raised up Saul to be king for you. They said, how can he be king over us when we are more deserving of the kingdom than he is, since he has not been given enough wealth? He said, indeed, Allah has chosen him above you and has increased him abundantly in wisdom and stature. Allah bestows his dominion on those whom he wills. Allah is all-embracing and all-knowing. And their prophet said to them, indeed, the signs of his kingdom is that the ark will come to you, in which is the Sakina from your Lord, and remnant of what the house of Moses and the house of Aaron left behind. The angels bearing it, indeed, this will be a sign for you, if you are believers.
Now, Sakina is a word from Hebrew, and in the Hebrew, it's Shekinah, a dwelling place of God on the earth, like the Ark of the Covenant or something like that. And in Islam, It doesn't have any particular meaning. It's just a word that they took, just like they're taking the whole story here of Saul. And it essentially means an assurance that the Lord is with them. But of course, there's no idea of the presence of God on earth, because that would be anathema. That would be wrong in Islam, just like they think that it's wrong that God could become a man. Allah can do anything except that, apparently.
Just a quick question. So he's talking about someone called king to be Saul, Saul to be king. So is this the King Saul in the Bible?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And this is a story taken from the Bible with some differences, of course, as is so often the case when the Quran tells biblical stories. It doesn't always get them quite right. Never gets
So am I right, in that case, am I right to assume that God of Islam or Muslims should no kind of critique, Muslims shouldn't critique anything King Saul did, because this verse simply says, well, Allah is the one who chose him and then who ordered him to do things. So for example, when Muslims attack Samuel 15, they should simply, we can use Surah 247 to respond, well, King Saul is simply responding what Allah wants him to do.
Well, when you're talking about Samuel, you remember that a modern Muslim, although this is not really based on the Quran, but it's a very common assumption that the Bible has been corrupted. And so they would just say, this is not really what happened. If there's something in there that contradicts Quran, they would claim that Quran is right and is setting the record straight, and the biblical story is wrong.
Well, they can cry how much they want to cry regarding our Bible is corrupted, but at the end, Allah is falling in love with the Bible. Not only that, Allah is even falling in love with Saul and all of action Saul did. So Muslims just needs to get a grip of it or something.
Well, you're right. It's a completely inconsistent position.
Yeah.
Because the Quran tells the Christians and the Jews that they should follow their scriptures. So how could they be corrupted? But anyway, there's no resolution to that.
And we are only doing Surah 2 right now, but so far you showed us verses after verses that author of the Quran expresses that Quran came to confirm the Bible, confirm the Bible. Yeah. Verse 249. And when Saul set out with the army, he said, indeed, Allah will test you by a river. Whoever therefore drinks from it is not with me, and whoever does not taste it is with me, except the one who takes it in the hollow of his hands. But they drank from it, all except a few of them. And after he had crossed, he and those who believed with him, they said, we have no power this day against Goliath and his hosts. But those who knew that they would meet Allah exclaimed, how many little companions have defeated mighty hosts by Allah's permission? Allah is with the preserving. Just wanted to kind of emphasize that phrase, that people are being defeated by Allah's permission. So this is just very helpful phrase for us to use against Muslims when they start attacking the character of the God in the Old Testament.
Well, see, the point here is at the end of 249, how many little companies have defeated mighty hosts? So that recalls the Battle of Badr and the little company of the Muslims defeating the mighty hosts of the Quraysh of Mecca. And that's the point that's being made. But here you notice that the story is all scrambled. In 249, we hear about people being tested at a river by drinking water or not drinking, and this, of course, doesn't come from the story of Saul, but the story of Gideon in the book of Judges. And it's been put here. I think that it's a different text that I've said at other episodes of our show here, that you have in Surah Al-Bakara and also all through the Quran things that are just stuck together without any rhyme or reason to them. And I think this is a case of it. that the story of Saul was being told, and this fragment of the story of Gideon from the book of Judges is stuck here and doesn't have anything to do with what goes on, what is being said about Saul. Because of course Saul didn't fight, as you have here, the commenter said that you have Goliath coming into the story right after the water test. So this is all mixed up between Gideon and Saul and Goliath, who of course David fights later, and so on. So it's just there's no making sense of this other than the biblical text, which sorts out which part goes where. And then they say the biblical text is corrupted. It's actually quite clear the Quran is what's corrupted.
So you are interpreting that as the Quran corrupted, but how
Yes.
do you reconcile that statement with few verses earlier we read, Allah is mighty and wise?
Well, I'm not sure Allah is all that mighty or wise. I think it can be revealed today. Yes, Allah is not as mighty and as wise as he claims.
So he's not wise enough to get the right stories.
Yes.
And when they went out into the field against the Goliath and his host, they said, Our Lord, give us endurance, make our foothold sure, and give us help against the disbelieving people. So they routed them by Allah's permission, and David killed Goliath.
Yeah, there you have David. So we're back to David and Goliath. The water test and all that from Judges has nothing to do with that. And it doesn't have anything to do with it in the story either. It's just stuck there.
You know, sometimes like you speak about lots of people, and then in fast conversation, you just like misgive the names.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hope that your listener is actively listening to so that they can get the like right stories. I think Allah is doing the same thing. Allah is just like lying again, lying. And then Muhammad, who is receiving the revelation, did not pick up. So therefore it ended up in the Quran in this way.
Okay. Not quite the perfect book.
And Allah gave him the kingdom and wisdom and taught him what he willed. And if Allah had not repelled some men by means of others, the earth would have been corrupted. But Allah is the Lord of kindness to his creatures.
Note that. That's a very important verse there in 250. If Allah had not repelled some men by means of others, the earth would have been corrupted. So see here again, like we were talking about earlier, waging jihad, fighting in the way of Allah, is a holy act, a sacred act that keeps the earth from being corrupted. When jihadis go out and kill people, they don't see it as a massacre. You know, when I'm reporting at Jihad Watch and I say jihadis massacre 50 people in Nigeria or something like that, they see this as purifying and cleansing the land. They are keeping the land from being corrupted by the sins of the people of the book.
Yeah, it's the like same mindset of the apostasy. So you want to kind of get rid of one person so that community is not being destroyed.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess like you earlier expressed the biblical definition for kindness, like Father loving the world, therefore sending his own son, and then out of kindness, Son gives himself for us. And in here, Islamic definition for kindness is like a little bit different.
Yeah, you kill somebody else who's spreading corruption. That's Allah's kindness. That you killed the source of corruption, according to yourself.
These are the signs of Allah which we recite to you with truth, and indeed you are among the number of messengers. Of these messengers, some of whom because they excel others, and there are some to whom Allah spoke while he exalted some of them in degree. And we gave Jesus, son of Mary, clear proofs, and we supported him with the Holy Spirit. And if Allah had willed, those who followed after them would not have fought one with another after the clear proofs had come into them. But they disagreed, some of them believing and some disbelieving. And if Allah had willed, they would not have fought one with another. But Allah does what he wills.
So Allah wills the fighting. Once again, we see Allah loves the fighting. We just saw in 251 that Allah purifies the world of corruption by having some men fight others. And then in 253, we see that the people who are disbelieving fight with those who who are believing. And if Allah had willed, they wouldn't have fought. So Allah wanted the fighting. He wants conflict. He wants people to be at war with each other.
There is like something very concerned in what Allah wills, because if someone doesn't have any standards, like if you don't know, if someone just changes their will, you know, like pregnant women, every morning they want like new things, they want new things. And Allah is not much different from them. His mind changes quite often. So therefore, it should make it very difficult for Muslims to trust him, because he doesn't have any kind of standards. He doesn't have any ground rules.
That's a very important point. Actually, that's why science developed in Christian Europe and not in the Islamic world. There's a lot of falsehood spreading around about that these days, and people saying, well, the Muslims really invented everything and then we picked it up in the West. But this is just fantasies to make Muslims feel better in the West today. What the real story is that science developed in Christian Europe rather than in the Islamic world, because the Christians understood that God would be consistent, that if God is good, he's always going to be good. He's not going to be evil tomorrow. And so you could study the universe and understand that it would be constructed according to consistent and observable laws. Whereas in Islam, a law that would be restricted, that would be chaining his hand, as Surah 5 says. That would be restricting a law. He can do whatever he wants, and that means he might not make the world consistent. It might not be the same tomorrow as it is today. Tomorrow, a river might be a horse, so you can't study. It's worthless to study it. It's useless. It would be restricting a law.
It will be also very difficult to describe such a character as faithful, because you just don't know if the river is going to be horse tomorrow.
Yes.
Allah, there is no God except him, the living one. Oh, this is Ayat al-Kursi. Allah, there is no God except him, the living one, the eternal one. Neither slumbers nor sleeps overtake him. To him belong whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth. Who is he who intercedes with him except by his permission? He knows what is in front of them and what is behind them, while they encompass nothing of his knowledge except what he wills. His throne includes the heavens and the earth, and he is never weary for preserving them. He is this sublime and tremendous.
You said it very softly before you read it, that this is Ayat al-Kursi, the throne verse, the verse of the throne, that is often referred to as the most beautiful passage in the Quran. And Qurtubi says, when the throne verse was revealed, every idol and king in the world fell prostrate, and the crowns of the kings fell off their heads. So I expect that since you just read it out, that's happening wherever there's still kings right now. Their crowns are falling off their heads.
It is one of the verse like you memorize from very early age, and then you are encouraged to recite it before you go to bed. But also, you brought up Qurtubi. When you look at the also Islamic tradition, you get to see actually this very verse revealed not by Allah but by the Satan. So Satan made people to memorize it. That's very disturbing. That whole heaven, whole the throne of Allah is kind of bows down to Satan, one of the satanic verses.
Yes, endlessly interesting.
And it's like in a short way summarize the character of God. But when you read it, so what did we learn about a character of God? Nothing. So he's eternal one, but what does it say about? We just read previously, he's not faithful. He just does what he wills. Or like, even though you are kind of encouraged to recite it, still it doesn't tell you very basics about what kind of God Muslims worship.
There's a contradiction in it too. Also, you see in the middle of it, who is he who intercedes with him except by his permission? And we've already seen passages saying there's nobody that can intercede with him. Everybody's on their own on the day of judgment. And now we have him apparently giving permission to some people to intercede.
Yeah, jihadi husbands, Muhammad, all that, like even that very verse full of contradiction. But since this is like one of the very important verse in the Quran, I am sure what follows should be like so amazing. There is no compulsion in religion. The right direction is from now on distinct from error. And he who rejects Taghut and believes in Allah has grasped a firm handhold which will never break. Allah is Hira, Noah. Allah is the protector.
That's one of the most famous verses in the whole Quran. It's one of the most popular among non-Muslim politicians in the West. That if you have the Quran according to Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or any Western politician, Keir Starmer, they would have this in it. There's no compulsion in religion. And chapter 5, verse 32, anybody who kills an innocent person, it's as if you killed the whole world. And that would be about it. A paragraph or two. There's no compulsion in religion is contradicted in numerous ways. And in the footnote here in the critical Quran, I have authorities who say that it was abrogated by other passages calling for fighting against the unbelievers. And even when it's taken seriously, the idea of compulsion in Islam is very different from the idea of compulsion among non-Muslims. Like there were a couple of reporters who were kidnapped some years ago, and they were forced to convert to Islam, and the videos were made where they said they were converting freely and not being forced. And then they were freed, and they went home, and people asked them, what does it mean you weren't forced? They were holding a gun to your head right there. And the choice was they could have chosen to be killed. They still were not being forced to convert to Islam. They could have chosen to die. So there was no compulsion in religion.
So you are telling me actually one of the verses which is known by most non-Muslims actually not only got abrogated, but when it is practiced, the choice is being alive as a Muslim or being dead as non-Muslim.
Yeah, that's basically it. There's no real substance to it in terms of actually not having compulsion in religion as we would understand it. You can't find any Islamic authority saying we have to have equal rights for the non-believers because there's no compulsion in religion. And there are no equal rights for non-believers in any Islamic country.
Well, I was with Boko Haram a couple of years ago. They put the gun on the table, and then they are asking me if Muhammad is prophet or not. I'm just like, it doesn't look like we've got much more options here. If he's not prophet, probably I will be dead.
Yes. No compulsion.
No compulsion at all. Allah is the protecting guardian of those who believe. He brings them out of darkness into light. As for those who disbelieve, their patrons are Taghut. They bring them out of the light into darkness. They are the rightful companions of the fire. They will remain in it.
That Taghut, that's an Ethiopic word. And that's interesting because the Quran is supposed to be pure Arabic. But I left it. It's often translated, but I left it because it's not an Arabic word. And nobody's actually even really sure what it means. But the Islamic tradition identifies it as being a reference to the idols or even shaitans, the devils. And so it's something to be rejected, but they are the patrons of those who disbelieve. So it's interesting to compare that to verse 62 that we read probably some weeks ago. The verse that tells you that the Jews and the Christians and the Sabaeans can attain paradise. But now we hear that the patrons of the disbelievers are idols or Satan. So there's no consistency here.
as I was so you made a point that while Quran is the Arabic language alone, there are other words from the different languages end up in the Quran. But as I was reading the phrase where it says like, okay, they will be come out of darkness into the light, I was just thinking, how come I missed this like verse? It's like very nice, looks like they stole it from John Gospel. And then when it comes to towards end, they are rightful companions with hell. I'm just like, yeah, that's the reason probably I missed the verse.
Yes.
Think of the one who had argument with Abraham about his Lord, because Allah had given him kingdom. How? When Abraham said, my Lord is he who gives life and causes death, he answered, I give life and cause death. Abraham said, indeed, Allah causes the sun to rise in the east, and do you cause it to come up from the west? In this way, the disbelievers are embraced, and Allah does not guide wrongdoing people.
Notice that this story, it's another strange story. I don't think we have the whole story here, as is so often the case in the Quran, but it ends up with the disbeliever was embarrassed. So here again, the idea of the Muslims and the non-Muslims in the Quran is that the non-Muslims have to be humiliated. They have to be embarrassed. They have to be subjugated. They have to be degraded in every way possible. And this is held up as the ideal. It's a good thing that the disbeliever was embarrassed. It doesn't say the disbeliever was treated with tolerance because there's no compulsion in religion. He was made to feel ashamed.
Also, how do you reconcile this verse with the sun is going to set in muddy water?
There's no reconciling that. It's just one folk tale and another. That's all.
Okay. I'm going to bring up this question to you, not this question, comment from the chat to you, because you have written quite a lot about Israel and Hamas and Palestine thing. Someone is expressing, after he expressed free Palestine, I think he meant free Palestine from Hamas. Mahdi is coming soon to conquer Israel. Any thoughts on that?
Well, the Mahdi isn't coming soon or late. He's not coming. He doesn't exist. It's fake. You are believing a false religion. And so there's no answer to that except everything we've been saying about Islam in the Quran to show that this is not Holy Scripture. This is a tissue of half understood, half remembered, half edited traditions taken from other religions and used to create this new religion. And it's got no actual truth to it at all.
Also, another way of thinking is, according to Islam, Allah gave that land to Israel. So
that's true. Although I think that if you read the whole Quran, it looks as if the promises that the children of Israel receive, they go to the Muslims, because the children of Israel are enemies of Allah. And so the real children of Israel are the followers of the true teachings of Moses, and that's the Muslims. So I don't think the Quran actually promises Israel to the actual Jews. It's really saying the Muslims have it by right.
Okay, I was thinking in the sense of like, sake of the argument, with the interpretation of what I have, that Allah give that land to Israel, then why would Mahdi come to simply disobey Allah and then undo what Allah give it to Israel? That's what I was thinking. It does
say, we'll get to it eventually, it does say in the Quran that Allah gave the land to the children of Israel. We can talk about it then. This doesn't make Muslims think, oh, we have to support Israel, because they understand it as referring to the Muslims. But certainly it's something you can use to embarrass the disbelievers, which Allah wants us to do.
Let's follow the teachings of Allah when it comes to that then. Verse 259. Or the
comparison?
I can't find the verse.
Yeah, or
Okay.
the comparison of him who, yes.
259. Or the comparison of him who passes by the town which had fallen into utter ruin. Exclaimed, how will Allah give this township life after its death? And Allah made him die for 100 years, then brought him back to life. He said, how long have you waited? He said, I have waited a day or a part of the day. He said, no, but you have waited for 100 years. Just look at your hand and drink, look at your food and drink, which have not rotted. Look at your donkey, so that you may make we may make you a sign for mankind. Look at the bones, how we unjust them and then cover them with flesh. And when it come to clear to him, he said, I know now that Allah is able to do all things. And when Abraham said, my Lord, show me how you give life to the dead, he said, do you not believe? Abraham said, yes, but that my heart may be at ease. He said, take forth of the birds and then cause them to come to you. Then place a portion of them on each hill. Then call them. They will come to you quickly, and know that Allah is mighty and wise. Those who spend their wealth in Allah's way are like a grain that grows 7 years. In every year 100 grains. Allah gives manifold increase to whom He wills. Allah is all-embracing and all-knowing.
Notice again, this is just all over the place. There's no unity to this at all. We were talking about Saul a minute ago, and David and Goliath. And now we've got this strange story about this man who died for 100 years, and then he's brought back. Who is it? We're not told. What is the point of the story? Apparently that Allah can kill and bring back to life. And so then the next story, it makes sense that it would follow, because Abraham says, show me how you give life to the dead. And so Allah tells him to take birds and call them. And this is supposed to tell him how Allah gives life to the dead. But apparently the birds were dead, but we're not even told that. So these are two stories that have to do with giving life to the dead. Neither of them make any sense on their own. And it looks as if a lot of the details that would make them make sense are left out of them. And then we're back, without any notice, in 261, to how you have to give your wealth for Allah, and that you'll be rewarded for doing so, which has nothing to do with giving life to the dead. So here again, we have these things that I think it's different pieces of paper that were stuck together to make this. It has no unity in it at all.
Just a practical question. Mm-hmm. Even though the story doesn't follow and doesn't match with like kind of previous scripture, so the man kind of gets back to be living after 100 years, according to like person who noticed it. And his donkey didn't age. His donkey is over 100 years old, and food and drink is like all the vegetables didn't go off, and he just picks up the life where he left. Correct?
That's apparently what it says. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, actually, the funny thing about that is that would be exactly what he would have seen if he had been dead asleep for a day. You know, he said, I've waited a day or part of a day. And that's exactly what he would have seen if he'd waited a day or part of a day. So Allah doesn't actually show him anything that proves that it's 100 years later. He only shows him things that he would have seen after a day anyway. So that his food is essentially the same, and that his donkey is fine.
I had dogs, and they were very faithful. So when you are upset, they don't leave you. They stuck with you when you take them for a walk. They come back to you when you call them. But I didn't know donkeys are faithful. Even someone 100 years doesn't move anywhere. Donkey doesn't go off, doesn't eat the food, just like wait faithfully alongside of his owner. I didn't know that. I find that's amazing itself.
You'll see Allah is mighty and wise. But see, the thing about this is also the food is not rotted. The food would not just rot. In 100 years, there wouldn't be anything there. What can you actually think that you're going to set out a plate somewhere outside and go back 100 years later and it's going to even be recognizable as having been there? It'll be completely different.
I think donkey was protecting the vegetables.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
It was the donkey of Allah, like the camel of Allah.
Yep. Since the verse finishes, like story finishes, Allah is wise.
Yes.
Those who spend their wealth for the sake of Allah and afterwards do not follow up what they have spent with reproach and insult, their reward is with their Lord, and no fear will come upon them, nor will they grieve. So is it saying don't insult anyone?
Don't insult anyone.
Yeah.
Oh, those who spend their wealth for the sake of Allah and afterward do not follow up what they have spent with reproach and insult, their reward is with their Lord. I suppose so. But of course, what constitutes an insult in the Islamic context is very different from what constitutes an insult for other people. As we have seen, we have terrible stories of Muhammad saying terrible things to people, and those being used as exemplary by Muslim spokesmen today who are so rude and arrogant because they think this is how their prophet acted.
I'm taking that as, well, Allah doesn't look them nicely.
Yes.
A kind word with forgiveness is better than almsgiving followed by insult. Allah is absolute, merciful. O you who believe, do not render your almsgiving useless with reproach and insult, like the one who spends his wealth only so that man will see him and does not believe in Allah and the last day. He is like a rock on the which dust of the earth, and the rainstorm strikes it, leaving it smooth and bare. They have no control of anything that they have gained. Allah does not guide the disbelieving people. And those who spend their wealth in search of Allah's pleasure and for the strength of their souls are like a garden on the height. The rain strikes it and brings it forth its fruits twofold. And if the rain does not strike it, then the shower. Allah is seer of what you do.
Allah's pleasure. You see, you have to take care of pleasing Allah. Whereas it's just the opposite in Christianity, where the salvation of the world is affected by the love of God for his people. And so certainly people, human beings in the Christian context, try to please God, but it's not a transactional thing. Whereas in this case, you spend your wealth for Allah's pleasure, then Allah will repay you with the garden, supposedly. But he's not bound, of course, because he's not bound by anything.
But Allah's pleasure is depend on Muhammad's happiness. So as long as you make this Muhammad, who's been dead for long time, happy, then you will get Garden of Hate.
Yes.
Would any of you like to have a garden of palm trees and vines, with rivers flowing under it, with all the kindness of fruit for him within it, and old age has stricken him, and he has feeble offspring, and fiery
fiery whirlwind.
Fiery whirlwind strikes it, and it consumes by fire. In which way Allah makes plain to you his signs, so that you may think.
Yes.
O you who believe, spend out of the good things which you have earned, out of what we bring forth from the earth for you, and do not seek bad things to spend from them, when you would not take them for yourself, except with disdain. And know that Allah is absolute and the owner of praise. Allah is like kind of this vampire who wants to be pleased, who wants to be praised, hungry vampire.
And notice we're still talking now from 262 or 261. And so it's been a long passage here, and it's still not over, about spending, giving your wealth for Allah. And that's fine, but I mean, in the you have in the other religions that people should donate to the people who are taking care of the sacred things. There's nothing unreasonable in that in itself, although, of course, as we've discussed, there's more to it in Islam. But notice that that was something that we were talking about before, and then all these other things came in. So it seems like there was probably a long passage that had to do with giving for the sake of Allah, giving to Allah, giving to the leaders of Islam. And then these other stories were stuck in the middle so that it's interrupted and comes back to it later.
I've got different explanation though.
Okay.
I think Muslims were not giving Muhammad enough.
Yes.
Muhammad still wanted more and more and more, even though they were giving, but it wasn't enough. Allah stepped in for his own pleasure. Simply is like telling Muslims, you've got to give. You've got to give. It is good for you.
Yes, but why talk about how you've got to give and then change the subject without notice and then go back to it later? Now, you could say, well, Muhammad was scatterbrained, and so he had these thoughts, and then he would think of something else he wanted to say about his first subject after he'd gone on to his second and third subject. And there are people who speak that way. Or it could be that these things are, like I say, different stories and traditions that are all stuck together without any rhyme or reason.
I was going to say, not everyone is experienced as you are writing books and being able to like communicate it well. So when people don't know how to communicate, he's like Allah and his prophet doesn't look much different from the Kamala Harris. Nothing personal.
So it's Muhammad's first book, and that's why it's poorly organized. His second book would have been better. Even my first book wasn't this bad.
Satan promised you destitutions and commands nullets for you. But Allah promised you forgiveness from himself with bounty. Allah is all-embracing, all-knowing. He gives wisdom to whom he wills, and he to whom wisdom is given, he indeed has received abundant good. But no one remembers this except men of understanding.
See, no one remembers this except men of understanding. But Allah could have made everybody a man of understanding because he gives wisdom to whom he wills. So he wants some fools out there. See, he only gave wisdom to some of them, some people, then they're the men of understanding. But the others he doesn't. They're just out of luck.
So he's like picking and choosing people however it fits himself. Yes. He can say, okay, these are Mrs. Stupids and these are Mr. Clevers.
Yes.
Because we are going to read it in like Surah, actually very soon, probably next week, where some women are not even clever. So therefore they don't get enough all that. So Allah specially choose to not give wisdom to women.
That's right. That's why it's no one remembers this except men of understanding. It doesn't say anything about women of understanding.
I think we can stop here. It's been like almost an hour mark. So okay. I can pick up where we left. And when we pick up, we will be remembering Allah knows everything.
Yes. And we might even get through the cow.
Yeah, it's almost done. I think we will finish next week.
God willing.
God willing, yeah. Not Allah wills, but God wills. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much for helping us to look at those verses. Before I let you go, would you be kind of tell us what have you been doing last 2 weeks? Because I kind of ignored you last 2 weeks. So I'm not up to date what's happening in your life. And also, if you can give us quick update, how can people pray for you? How can people support you?
Oh, thank you very much. I always appreciate prayers for health, for able to keep working. And what have I been doing the last 2 weeks? It's the same old thing. I have a website, Jihad Watch, that is news about jihad activity, and sent off my new book to the publisher today, just this morning, called The Tragedy of Islam, Failure and Excuses. They might change that, but right now that's what it's called. It's about Islam being something that makes you fail. It fails people individually, and it fails societies, and it makes for individuals to fail and societies to fail. And then there is no end of non-Muslims who make excuses and claim that it has this wonderful past, or that it's responsible for all these wonderful things. Anyway, that's what that book's about. It'll be out about a year from now, God willing. And then I have another book that's all finished that'll be out in March called Anti-Semitism, History and Myth, that is about the explosion of anti-Semitism since the Hamas attack of October 7th, 2023, and why people of goodwill should oppose anti-Semitism, and why some of the common claims about Jews are false. Yeah. And that's basically it. Just going on, and I hope you are well and prospering, and we'll continue to pray for you, and everybody here should, as I know they do.
Thank you. As you were telling me, what is the title of your book, Tragedies of Islam? Do you remember?
Yes.
Do you remember a lady called Shamima Begum, jihadi bride from England?
Sure.
She was, yeah, she's stuck in Iraq, Syria, so probably she will come back very soon. But as she was talking about the tragedy of being ISIS wife, she expressed that there was not meat chocolate. That was a tragedy.
Yes, but she actually is a good example of how Islam can destroy people, because she was in Britain and she could have stayed in Britain and made a life for herself. And instead she chose to join ISIS and join the jihad. And now she lives in this refugee camp, and her whole life is trying to persuade the British authorities to let her come back. And she'll probably succeed because they're weak and stupid. But yeah. This doesn't mean that she'll get back all those years that she spent there. So she's made like the commenter says, she's made her bed and she's lying in it. She's reaping the consequences of her own actions.
Well, I think she will come back, and then she will be in charge of the de-radicalization program in England with the council house, 4 bedrooms or something. So that's something.
Oh, yes. Yes. It's insane.
And those of you who would like to support Robert Spencer, you can go to link. There's description in the video. You can check that link and then follow the guidance, or go to Jihad Watch, and there is a way to kind of financially support him as well. Prayfully consider and then see how the Lord leads you, and act on it. Robert Spencer, thank you very much for joining me again. By God's grace, I'll see you again next week. And thank you very much, everyone who joined us in the chat. By God's grace, we will see you again. Until we see you, may Christ crucified silently with his love.